We have some data and some stats. Y'all know I like data and stats that can help you to prove that investing isn't as risky as what most people think. Hey, Kevin here, top 100 financial advisor and best-selling author, and we are here to talk about the stock market. Today, I want to give you 3 things that I wish I knew when I started investing. And for those who know, I've been doing this since about 2010, so it's 11 years in the game, and a lot of mistakes. That I have made, and really misconceptions that have stopped me from investing when I feel like I should have, and the trajectory of my life could have been a little bit different if I had learned these lessons sooner. So I want to go ahead and give you these 3 lessons and hope that it can help you become a better investor and help those around you. So make sure you hit the like, subscribe button, and definitely hit the share button. Get this out there. Tell more people. There you go. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is risk. I came into this thinking that the stock market was the most risky thing in the world. It's a place where people go absolutely crazy and lose tons and tons and tons of money. Now, do people lose money? Yes, they do. Usually they lose money. They did something they didn't understand. They invested in something that was super risky, and there are investments that are totally fine for the long term. I didn't know that actually existed. In fact, we have some data and some stats. Y'all know I like data and stats that can help you to prove that investing isn't as risky as what most people think. For example, you hold a stock for 5 years or more, you have a 97% chance that stock is going to be positive. Hold it for 3 years, you have an 89% chance that stock is going to be positive. 89% for 3 years, 5 years or more, you're looking at a 97% chance that the stock is going to be positive. I'm not saying it's risk-free, because it's not, but I think it's relatively safe, right? That's not that bad. I thought, it's a 90% chance of loss, and that's not the case when you are a long-term investor. I didn't think that was the case. When I was a kid, when I was doing this for the first time, I didn't think long-term was really anything. However, those the numbers, right? Them's the facts. But also we know that on average, the stock market hits a new high every 21 days. Now, it don't feel like that now in October, right? It doesn't feel like that in September. But again, that's on average, which again says that, hey, look, if you're doing this and you're just staying in the game and being consistent, you're going to hit those all-time highs. You're going to see positive numbers if you're in it for a while. For example, today, Facebook absolutely tanked. In fact, Facebook was off. Somebody just deleted all of Facebook and could not get on for hours. However, if you were investing in Facebook today, you lost some money today. But if you invested in Facebook, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, this little blip don't bother you at all. Okay, that's the power of investing consistently for the long term. Right now, it's not looking great. People who started investing in September 2021, not looking all that great. People who were investing in March 2020 is looking great now, right? It wasn't great at the time, but it's looking great now. People who were investing in 2010, people who were investing in 2000, people who invested in the 80s, they look amazing right now because they've been in it for the long term. And usually, the longer that you're invested in something, the better off things are. And that's not for every single stock in the world. That is just an average. If you're talking about index funds, you're going to be all right. I did a whole video on index funds. So that was risk. Number 1, I wish I would have known that it was not as risky as what I assumed and not as risky as what it showed me in the movies. But also, going back to the movies and TV and all that kind of stuff, the second thing that I wish I would have known is that unless you are using margin, you cannot lose more than what you put in. And this was something that I think my dad and I had a conversation when I first opened my very first investing account. And we were like, well, wait a minute, if you put in 100 and something goes wrong, couldn't you owe like $10,000? And no, not really. Not in a normal investing account. So what is a normal investing account and what is a non-normal account? So when you open an account, usually you open what is defaulted to a cash account, which means you can only trade with the money that you have. You put in $100, you invest in something. If that stock goes to 0, which is rare, but if it goes down to 0, you lost 100. That's it. You do not lose $10 million because you invested $100. However, you can opt for what is called a margin account, and that is when you borrow funds to invest in something. So for example, you can say, look, you open your app, you ask for margin, you put in $100, and then you take out a $100 loan. So now you got $200. and the stock dips, and then you lose money, and you got to pay the brokerage money. That's not where you want to be. Okay, margin is something that I would say day traders use a lot, which is what makes day trading dangerous, and we could also make it lucrative. So it can go either way. It's something that I do not recommend for an average investor. You better have bread, and I mean a lot of bread, before you start messing with margin. We don't talk about margin over here, but I did want to define it. I'm actually working on a piece for Business Insider to talk about margin as well, so we'll walk it out and explain what all of that stuff means. However, I thought that was the default. I thought, if I got $1,000, this don't go well, I'm losing it all plus some, and that's not the case at all. Most of us, if you got a regular account, you put in your money, and worst case scenario, your risk is limited to the money that you have in the account, because the stock can't go below zero. That's just it. So that was something that I wish I would have known earlier. I probably would have been a lot less afraid of the stock market had I known that. And I was 17, 18, 19. But had I known that, perhaps things would have been a bit different for me. I'll say, look, this is why people say don't invest more than what you're willing to lose. Because if I put in $300 and lose $300, it is what it is. However, if I'm investing that same $300 in a company that I've researched, a company that I understand, perhaps an index fund, and I left it in there and allowed it to keep growing, perhaps it would be well over $300, which we knew would be the case if you're doing it for the long term. So that's the second thing, was margin. I wish I had known that was not standard. And I wish I had known what margin was. Didn't know any of that when I started investing. And then the last thing is time. I thought, and I'll tell you a quick story about my very first investment, but I thought that this is a quick game. You get in, you buy a stock, I'll wait a few days, and boom, I cash out, take my money, and go do something else. I thought, and I get this question all the time, it's like, when do I sell? Right? When do I sell? When do I just, I put it in there, and then when do I get my money out? When's the payday? When is the payday? When is that direct deposit hit? This is the stock market, and most of us shouldn't be doing all of that. This is a long-term generational wealth type of thing. And the majority of the successful investors, and majority of millionaires, I've talked about this before, have their money in long-term stuff where they're investing for decades, and then that money takes care of them for decades. It is rare, it is exceedingly rare where you see people who are successful at doing a lot of short-term trading and they're able to really change the direction of their lives. That doesn't mean that it does not happen. It doesn't mean that it's impossible. I'm just saying there's a wide group of people here who have done it doing a long-term way, and there's a tiny fraction of people who did their own path and got there a lot faster. You take whatever route works for you. I like to try to fall right in the middle where I do a lot of my long-term stuff, and then when the situation is right, I'll do some short-term stuff. So you can do both, but I want you to get your expectations in a realistic manner, which is something I did not do when I started investing. So that is the 3 things that I wish I would have known about investing. I'll kind of recap them again. 3 things I wish I would have known is time. It does take time to really start to see that compounding. That is really the key to investing, is getting that money to work for you, and then that money that you just got having to work for you over and over and over and over again. So make sure that I had the time, understanding margin, and that I did not have to borrow money to invest in the stock market at all. And in fact, that's not a best practice. As someone who has invested more than $140 million on behalf of my clients, I had 2 clients who ever used margin, and that was it. And they were not even my richest clients. They were just people who just wanted to do that. Again, you don't need it. And then risk. I wish I had known that it wasn't the most risky thing in the world. So that is, again, the 3 things I wish I knew when I started investing. I hope it helped you. Let me know in the comments, what are some things that you wish you knew? So for people who've been doing this for a while, what is your thing? Like, what were the things that you wish you knew when you started? And then make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. All right, talk to you guys later.